For the first 30 years of my life, I had brown hair. Then the gray started to show up. Just a few strands at first, but by the time I hit 35, I had this thick white band running down the front of my hairline. I called it my skunk stripe, and I was okay with it, but other people were not. I started hearing, "You're too young to have gray hair," or "Have you ever considered coloring your hair?" or "You should try my hairdresser, she's a color expert." Now, I knew that they were just pushing the idea that's as American as mom and apple pie, is that we're supposed to look as young as we can for as long as we can, right? But I ignored their suggestions for another year or so, and I just kept getting grayer and grayer, and then finally I caved into this peer pressure and went to this color expert, and 90 minutes later I had this brand new head of deep auburn hair, and I thought, this is good, this is good. And it was good for about 3 weeks until the roots came back. And I said, oh no, this is the hair care equivalent of selling my soul to the devil. And then I was under a new pressure to preserve this illusion I created. So for the next 10 years, I was involved in this major cover-up operation of these gray roots. And after a while, every time those gray roots popped up just as dependably as the crocuses do each spring, I'd say, oh, what am I doing? I didn't want to do this. What do I really look like under this artificial layer? So one day I decided I was just going to stop coloring my hair. And my son, who was 9 at the time, said, Mom, they even have commercials on TV. If your hair is gray, you're supposed to dye it. And I said, we don't have to do what the commercials tell us to do, honey. And then I remembered a commercial from when I was a kid, a Lady Clairol commercial. Does she or doesn't she? Well, she doesn't anymore. And I went back to my hairdresser, and of course she wasn't happy with my decision, but she said, we'll just have to cut your hair shorter and shorter till the old color grows out. So then I started to feel like this prized rose bush that needed frequent pruning. She was snipping away at me every couple weeks until the new me emerged, which is pretty much what I look like now, except that was a few years ago. And I've had some interesting reactions to the way I look. I've had strangers on the train stand up and offer me their seat. Last summer I was in a minor fender bender with this 20-something-year-old guy who jumps out of his car and starts screaming and yelling before I could even get out from behind the wheel. And across the street there was a construction worker who looked over and said, "Yo, buddy, watch your mouth, that's an old woman in there." But I've had some positive reactions too. I've had more than one person say, wow, that light hair really brings out the blue of your eyes. Or I've had women come up to me in stores and tell me they like my hair, which never happened to me even once when I had brown hair. But the best was one day I was walking down the street in my neighborhood, and I see this woman on the other side of the street walking her dog, and all of a sudden she yells over, "I stopped coloring my hair because of you." And so, of course, I had to walk over and meet her, and she said, "Yeah, you know, I've seen you in the neighborhood." And one day I went home and I said to my kids, "I see a woman in our neighborhood, and she's got gray hair, and she looks okay, so I'm just going to stop coloring my hair." And I looked at her then gray head, and I said probably something like, "Well, I'm glad I could be of help." And you know what? Don't get me wrong. I am not a crusader. I'm not on any anti-coloring campaign. I think it's fine if other women color their hair. In fact, my younger sister often quotes a Lady Clairol ad, "If I've only one life, let me live it as a blonde." And I think that's fine, but just for me, it was just a way of trying to embrace the aging process and feel a little more comfortable with the way I look. And so then I thought, well, I need to come up with a positive image for the color of my hair. So I thought about it for a while, and then one day it came to me, clouds. So now I see my hair as the color of a cloud. The white mixed with gray is pretty much settled in on my head, and I think that they were right. I feel like it's made my eyes a clearer shade of sky. Thank you. That's your old favorite, right? Huh? That's your old favorite story.
Yeah, I do like that one.